My father-in-law is a troublemaker. I was working overtime until 10 o'clock when I suddenly received a message from him, which was a picture of my mother-in-law kneeling on the floor scrubbing. The text read, "Your mother-in-law is still working so late. She's very tired." And he often sends me links about unfilial daughters-in-law. I promptly forwarded all his messages to the family group. My father-in-law said in the group that everyone could see them, so that the educational significance could be extended and passed on. This isn't the first time my father-in-law has sent me such messages. During the spring festival last year, when my mother-in-law was steaming buns at home, he sent me a message saying, "Your mother-in-law steams buns every day. Her back aches terribly from it. She's really suffering." I had just gotten married a few days earlier then and felt too embarrassed to say anything. I just thought he was worried about his wife and had chosen the wrong person to confide in, so I transferred 1,000 yuan to him. "Dad, you better buy some buns instead of making them yourselves. It's not worth getting exhausted," I said. He immediately accepted the transfer but didn't mention the money at all, merely stating that more buns were needed for the spring festival. These days, your mother-in-law gets up at 3 or 4 in the morning to knead the dough. She's so exhausted that she can't sleep at night. The young daughter-in-law next door came back to help on the 23rd day of the 12th lunar month. She's been bustling around, being very diligent. Feeling annoyed, I didn't reply. The 12th day of the 12th lunar month was my mother-in-law's birthday. My father-in-law sent me a message a week in advance, reminding me not to forget to buy a gift for your mom. He sent me a link to a cashmere coat that he thought was nice. When I clicked on it, I saw it cost nearly 10,000 yuan. I wouldn't even splurge on something that expensive for myself. I looked at my phone with disgust. On my mother-in-law's birthday, instead of buying that coat, I got her a similar styled, affordable one that only cost 500 yuan, a gift that would still make her feel valued. I went back with my husband that day to celebrate her birthday. A few days later, my father-in-law sent me pictures of my mother-in-law working late at night again. I was furious and called my husband, Li Xijian, to tell him everything. "Can you talk to your dad? Tell him to come to you if he has something to say. What's the deal with him always coming to his daughter-in-law? Besides, is it my fault that your mom is tired? She's mopping the floor of your family home, not ours. Why is he bothering me about it?" My husband soothed me gently. "Don't be angry, dear. I'll call him right away. I've told him so many times. Why is he harassing you again? Don't be mad. I'll definitely handle this perfectly for you." Li Xijian's attitude calmed my irritation. I stared at the chat window, restraining myself from blocking my father-in-law. I decided to give Li Xijian a chance and also give my father-in-law one last opportunity. If he sends me any more nonsense, I won't hold back. Later, Li Xijian came to me looking proud. "Honey, I gave my dad a good lecture." In the end, he was left speechless. "Don't worry. I've sorted this out. This won't happen again." Indeed, my father-in-law stopped sending me messages. And he didn't pester me like before when I left his messages unresponded. I heaved a sigh of relief and soon forgot about it. But 3 days later, my father-in-law sent me several links with titles like, "When a daughter-in-law acts this way, the family will be in turmoil," and "What to do when you have a disobedient daughter-in-law." Fuming, I went to Li Xijian. He was looking at his phone with a helpless expression. I glanced down and saw that my father-in-law had sent him a bunch of links too, with titles such as, "Do the elderly have to end up miserable when they get old? Do their children grow to detest them? They say raising sons ensures one's old age. But can sons really provide for the elderly? Filial piety is the basic bottom line of being human. How to train your daughter-in-law to be as obedient as a dog." Li Xijian gave a bitter smile. I said everything I could last time and made the principles clear. I thought my dad understood, but he's at it again. Forget it, dear. Let's not stoop to his level. If he labels us as unfilial, it'll be overwhelming. Realizing I couldn't count on Li Xijian, I gave up trying to persuade him. I took a screenshot of his phone screen and forwarded the links my father-in-law sent me. Standing beside me, Li Xijian looked at me, puzzled. "What are you doing?" I went into the family group and posted all the screenshots of the links my father-in-law sent us. I specifically mentioned my father-in-law. "Dad, why don't you explain here? Everyone's here and can listen. This saves you from sending messages one by one. It must be tiring. Sorry, uncles and Bobo, for taking up the group's space. Let me start by self-criticizing. Here's what happened. My father-in-law sent me a message about my mother-in-law working. I forgot to reply, and now my father-in-law is lecturing us. I think any form of teaching has educational value. There are many younger generations in the group, and we can all learn together to avoid making the same mistakes as us." Still seething, I also posted the screenshot of the 1,000 yuan transfer I made to him when he complained about the bun steaming incident. This is a previous case. My approach isn't a model, but we can discuss and learn from it. The group fell into an eerie silence. No one said a word. Then my husband's phone rang urgently. It was my father-in-law. What does your wife mean by posting those things in the group? She's a junior. How dare she think I'm wrong? After all, I'm an elder. What's wrong with giving her a few words of advice? His voice made me so irritated that I snatched Lee Si-jin's phone and hung up. No matter how many times he called back, I ignored it. My husband looked at me hesitantly. This isn't right, is it? My dad is old. What if he gets too angry and his health suffers? I glared at him fiercely. If you feel sorry for him and want to listen to his complaints, go outside and do it yourself. If you want to be the punching bag, go ahead, but don't drag me along. After saying this, I lowered my head and continued to pick apart his words in the group. Dad, don't hang up the phone. Keep talking. Why aren't you saying anything? Don't you want to speak? My father-in-law was so enraged that he sent several 59-second voice messages. In essence, he sneered at my meager wealth, calling me miserly, accusing me of being stingy enough to buy a cheap imitation instead of a genuine cashmere coat for my mother-in-law's birthday. He even claimed that he'd searched online and found the coat I bought cost merely a couple of hundred yuan. I was almost driven to laughter by his absurdity. Dad, stop spouting nonsense. That coat actually cost over 500 yuan. Besides, you usually spend only tens of yuan on clothes, reluctant to part with even 100. Even if it were a couple of hundred, you shouldn't act like this. Lee Si-jin finally couldn't hold back and spoke up fairly. Unexpectedly, instead of being grateful, my father-in-law became even more enraged. So what if it's 500? Is 500 a large sum? The link I sent him before was for a coat worth over 10,000 yuan. His refusal to buy it proves he's stingy. Don't defend him. You married a wife and forgot your parents. You're unfilial. My father-in-law unleashed a torrent of abuse at him, and in the midst of his tirade, he brought up something I'd never known. It turned out that Lee Si-jin had a childhood friend from a wealthy family who'd adored him since they were kids, always trailing after him, calling him brother. Her parents ran factories and were considered millionaires in the countryside. Back then, her whole family favored Lee Si-jin and were willing to offer a house and a car as a dowry just to have him marry their daughter. But since he was already dating me at the time, he firmly declined. Now, harboring resentment, my father-in-law raged. I told you to marry Xiaoli, but you refused. They were ready to provide a house and a car, and your parents wouldn't have had to spend a penny. But no, you couldn't stand to see your parents at ease. You brought this shrew home, and now I had to borrow money to pay your down payment. Our family's savings have been completely drained by you. You know, all the money was spent on your education. You didn't want to live in the village bungalow but insisted on buying a house in the city. It's all because of this jinx you married. You should divorce her. Lee Si-jin's chest heaved with anger, yet he refused to stoop to his father's level and engage in a shouting match. He left the family group, leaving my father-in-law ranting alone. Initially seething with anger, my indignation subsided when I saw Lee Si-jin sitting forlornly in the corner of the bed, surreptitiously wiping away tears. Faced with such a father, he was more unfortunate than I. Losing the appetite for further argument, I also exited the group chat and without hesitation this time, blocked my father-in-law. Still mired in his despondency, Lee Si-jin lamented. Ever since I was a child, my father has constantly told me that all the family's money was spent on my education, piling on the mental pressure, hoping I'd marry Jolie so he wouldn't have to buy me a car or a house. But I didn't like her. Even after we've been married for so long, I thought he'd come to terms with it. Yet he still can't let it go, constantly making things difficult for you and provoking me with his words. I've told him many times that the 200,000 yuan they contributed for the house's down payment was already meager. The home renovation alone cost more than that. You used part of your 500,000 yuan dowry for the renovation and the rest to buy me a car. As a man, I already feel ashamed. But my father remains insatiable, always thinking I shouldn't have married you. I didn't want to tell you all this before, fearing it would break your heart and make you think I'm not worth it. As he spoke, his distress deepened, and the 6-foot-tall man broke down in tears. Softening, I embraced him. It's not your fault. You're a great earner now. Hand over all your salary to me for safekeeping. You're a good man. Don't be sad anymore. Just as we were sharing this tender moment, my mother-in-law called. I gave your father a good scolding in the group. He's getting more and more unreasonable with age, spouting nonsense at will. Weiwei is wonderful and I adore her. Don't be upset. I've rebuked him. Ignore him. He never helps out with work but now tries to play the good guy and seek attention. He's just got too much free time. After a long string of comforting words, she invited us to dinner that evening. Come home tonight. I'll make your father apologize to you. I interjected hesitantly. Mom, it's not necessary. Truthfully, I wasn't eager to see them, especially given the awkward situation. Moreover, the cozy atmosphere between my husband and I was perfect for a quiet dinner and a movie, and I didn't want to pretend to get along with them when our hearts weren't in it. Additionally, my mother-in-law was a mystery to me. Although she'd never deliberately made things difficult for me or demanded money for gifts like my father-in-law, I knew full well that the items my father-in-law asked me to buy were usually for his own use, and she surely knew about it yet never took a stance, neither stopping him nor objecting. Thus, I merely felt neutral towards her, unable to warm up to her. However, unable to resist her persistent and warm invitation, especially with my husband nudging me and mouthing, Mom has gone to the trouble of inviting us. Just go and come back quickly. I reluctantly agreed. True to her word, my mother-in-law prepared a sumptuous feast, including braised prawns, sweet and sour spare ribs, and an array of delicate side dishes. Come sit down. These are all your favorites, Weiwei. I went to the market specially today to get fresh meat and vegetables. Shortly after we sat down, she began to berate my father-in-law without mincing words. My father-in-law soon grew indignant and started to defend himself. Am I wrong? If we'd married Xiaoli, we wouldn't be under so much pressure now. Look at us drowning in debt. I'm afraid we'll never pay it off before we die. My mother-in-law cast a sidelong glance at me, then turned to my father-in-law and snapped. The more I tell you to stop, the more you run your mouth. Are you selling your son? Besides, why are you being so petty and making trouble? What's there to worry about? Even if you owe 200,000 yuan, do you think your son won't help you pay it off? Has he said he won't? I was stunned, and the piece of meat in my chopsticks fell back onto my plate. I looked at my husband, who also wore a bewildered expression, clearly hearing this for the first time. My mother-in-law immediately put on a warm smile and generously piled food onto my plate. Don't take it to heart, Wei Wei. Your father is just impatient. With so many creditors hounding him lately, he's been on edge, which is why he spouted nonsense in the group. I apologize on his behalf. Please don't be angry. Li Zijian couldn't hold his tongue and blurted out. What do you mean by that debt? I quickly pinched his arm and he stopped mid-sentence. Seizing the moment, my mother-in-law continued. I know. You two are good kids. You surely wouldn't bear to let us, two old folks in our 50s and 60s, shoulder the debt alone. You'll help us, won't you? Your father is just hot-tempered and hasty. I've already scolded him. Now let's eat. Li Zijian and I lost our appetite. We exchanged a look filled with helplessness. Your family only contributed 200,000 yuan. What do you mean by asking us to pay the debt? My mother gave me a 500,000 yuan dowry. So, it's okay for your family to marry a daughter-in-law without spending a dime. I retorted. That's different. Your family is well off, so it's only right that you contribute more. Your father and I aren't retired and don't have stable incomes. We borrowed money for your wedding. It's only natural that you help us pay it back. Besides, your words are too harsh. We're just asking you to share the debt, not shoulder it all alone. My mother-in-law retorted indignantly. I stood up, grabbed my bag and prepared to leave. I knew it. My good mood is completely ruined. Running away won't solve anything. You have to pay up before you go. All our relatives and friends know the money was borrowed for your house. My mother-in-law taunted, fueling my anger. In your dreams. Your family raised a son but couldn't save enough to marry him off, and now wants the daughter-in-law to clear your debts. You have some nerve. Maybe you two should just drop dead right now, and I'll consider selling your old house to settle the debt. On the way home, Li Zijian tried to soothe me. Don't stoop to their level. They're just like that, always penny pinching. Don't worry, they'll come to their senses in a few days. To our dismay, instead of calming down, they escalated the situation. They put our marital home up for sale. The house was registered under my father-in-law's name. At the beginning, I didn't think much of it, reasoning that I wasn't getting married with the thought of divorce in mind. I assumed the elderly were reluctant to part with all their savings for a house and wanted some sense of security, so I didn't fuss and got married with an open heart. When Li Zijian received a call from a potential buyer, he finally lost his temper. He called his father. Dad, what are you up to? My father-in-law replied defiantly. I listed the house. It's my house and I can sell it if I want. Since the property deed is in my name, I have every right. Li Zijian was beside himself with anger. You only paid the down payment, but we covered the renovation, bought all the furniture, and we've been paying the mortgage ever since. I don't care. Either you pay me back the 200,000 yuan down payment, plus 50,000 yuan in interest, or I'm selling the house. Take your pick. With that, he hung up angrily. Li Zijian looked at me with a bitter smile. How did I end up with such parents? What should we do, honey? A sense of unease crept over me. Could this be a ploy orchestrated by him and his parents? How could any parents be so cold-hearted to their child, treating raising a child like an investment and, when they didn't see the returns they wanted, trying to recoup their initial outlay at all costs? I was more inclined to believe they plotted to use a down payment to secure a marriage and now were scheming to get that money back, essentially marrying a daughter-in-law for free. A chill ran through me, and my gaze towards Li Zijian turned cold. What do you suggest? He didn't understand my suspicion and hung his head dejectedly. We'll have to scrape together the money. We can't let them sell the house. We paid for all the renovation and furniture, and I've already paid so much in mortgage. I couldn't tell if he was being sincere. But we don't have the money. I'm starting to regret this marriage I once thought so highly of. My father warned me that there were great risks in marrying someone from a different social background. Families that invest everything in a child don't give them up easily. Back then I was blinded by love and wouldn't listen. But now, even though he's clearly disappointed in his parents, he's still bound by the concept of filial piety and is being led around by them, falling right into their traps, whether they set them intentionally or not. Li Zijian clenched and unclenched his fists in frustration. Maybe I should take out a bank loan? Or could we borrow some money from your parents? I took a deep breath. I don't have 200,000 yuan. I can remove all the appliances, demolish the renovation, and return the bare-bones house to your parents. If you agree, we can rent a place and move out and we'll stop paying the mortgage. They should also reimburse us for the mortgage payments we've already made. If you don't agree, I smiled coldly, we divorce. He shook his head vehemently. I don't want a divorce. I'll support whatever you decide, but I think we'll suffer huge losses this way. The renovation alone cost 300,000 yuan, and my parents are only asking for 200,000. It doesn't make sense. Looking at his insistent expression, I had no patience to explain further. I'd rather lose the 300,000 yuan than give your parents the 200,000 yuan. You just need to decide whether to listen to me or get a divorce. Losing 300,000 yuan means we can sever ties with your parents once and for all. But if we give them 200,000 yuan, the house will still be in your father's name. Continuing to deal with them will cost us far more than 200,000 yuan in the long run. He stared at me in shock. So, you mean we just abandon my parents? You can take care of them if you want, but I won't. Logically, divorce seems like the best option. But since we've always had a good relationship, I'm reluctant to take that final step. So, I'm leaving the decision to you. I don't know how he communicated with his parents, but the result was him calling to berate me, accusing me of being heartless, willing to cause losses just to spite them. Their anger stemmed from their unwillingness to take on the nearly 3,000 yuan monthly mortgage for a house they couldn't live in but had to keep paying for. To them, we were nothing but a burden. At that moment, despite the heavy losses, I felt a perverse sense of satisfaction, a bittersweet pleasure in standing up for myself. When my parents heard about the situation, they immediately offered their house, saying, "There's no need to rent elsewhere. You can stay in our place." They had originally planned to renovate it during the spring festival and rent it out as a homestay. If we moved in, they'd lose that source of income. I hesitated, but Li Xijian thought for a moment and suggested, "Why don't we rent your parents' house and pay them rent? This way they won't suffer losses because of us, and we won't have to worry about adjusting to a new landlord. In 5 years, we should be able to save enough for a down payment and then buy our own place." A few days later, I was at home packing for the move when Li Xijian came to me, beaming with joy. "My parents have changed their minds. They want us to stay. We don't have to move, honey." I was taken aback. Far from seeing this as good news, I remained skeptical. But Li Xijian was overjoyed. I told them we were moving to your parents' house temporarily, and I guess they realized they'd gone too far. Look, they've changed their tune. Let's be the bigger people and forgive them this once. After all, they're my parents. Even though they can be stingy, they wouldn't really leave us homeless. I smiled faintly and continued packing. "We'll see in a few days." Li Xijian looked confused. Why keep packing if we're not moving? I thought to myself, how could such scheming parents have raised such a naive son? Was he just playing a part, or was he truly that innocent? Little did Li Xijian know. He'd been on the verge of divorce in my mind several times, only for my emotions and rationality to battle it out, with neither side gaining the upper hand. Sure enough, a few days later, when my in-laws thought we'd agreed to stay, they revealed their true intentions to Li Xijian. I knew the moment had come when he spent hours in the bathroom, the room filled with cigarette smoke, his face glum as he clutched his phone and refused to come out. Glancing at the nearly packed luggage in the room, I knocked on the bathroom door. "Li Xijian, come out. How many times have you been in there today?" "I'm constipated," he mumbled. I gave him a knowing smile, took his phone, and though I hesitated, I let him be. As expected, there was a message from my father-in-law. "You can keep living here, but pay the rent at the market rate you planned for your mother-in-law. We're all parents and we don't want to take advantage. We're being fair." I sneered. "Your parents have a great plan, don't they? My parents' house is fully renovated and furnished. If we moved there, paying rent was just something we discussed privately. My mom might not even accept it. And even if she did, it's nothing compared to the 500,000 yuan dowry she gave me. With your parents, we'd be living in their house, paying off their mortgage and giving them rent. Whenever they feel like it, they could kick us out and move back in. By then, they'd have made a fortune, and we'd have paid off their loan. What a perfect scheme." Li Xijian's eyes darkened and he said dejectedly, "Stop, honey. Now do you understand why I kept packing? I've seen through your parents. They won't lift a finger unless there's something in it for them. In their eyes, not getting the upper hand is like suffering a loss." Without a word, he picked up his phone as if to make a call. "Who are you calling?" I asked. "The moving company. Since most of the stuff is packed, let's go." I felt a wave of relief and even hummed a tune as I happily followed the movers downstairs. Li Xijian took the box from my hands. "Let me carry this. You just stay here and watch." Despite his gloomy mood, he was still as considerate as ever. My resentment towards him, which had been fueled by his parents' actions, began to fade. After everything was moved out, I asked some friends to demolish the renovation and then sent several pictures of the bare-bones house to the group chat with my in-laws. "Here it is, as good as new. Remember to pay your mortgage next month or the bank will seize it. Oh, and don't forget to reimburse us the 30,000 yuan we've already paid. We're pretty broke now that we don't have a house." When they started spreading rumors among relatives again, I compiled all the chat records and posted them in the family group, giving them plenty of gossip to talk about for a year. Both Li Xijian's and my phones kept ringing, but I turned mine off and ignored the commotion. Li Xijian answered his father's call, but after listening to the endless stream of insults, he couldn't take it anymore and followed my lead, turning off his phone. Seeing his still gloomy expression, I couldn't help but tease him. "Come on, let's go have something delicious to celebrate our new homeless life." After this incident, Li Xijian became much more mature. He was no longer the childish man who used to playfully tease me and pick fights for no reason. He became gentler and paid meticulous attention to every detail at home. He remembered my parents' birthdays and would prepare gifts in advance. The only noticeable change was his newfound focus on making money. It wasn't that he became stingy. He was still as generous as ever with me. He seemed to know exactly what I liked even before I mentioned it and would surprise me with gifts. He took on numerous side jobs in addition to his regular work and handed over every penny he earned to me. He even kept a small ledger to track when we'd be able to afford a down payment. Each time we reached a small milestone, he'd be overjoyed and take me out to celebrate. In fact, since moving out of that house, our relationship had become more harmonious and our love deeper. When he got drunk at business dinners, he'd hold me tight and cry, "I'm sorry, honey. I promise I'll give you a home soon." Only then did I realize how much he felt he'd let me down. My heart melted and I comforted him. "We'll work hard together." It seemed that the heavens favored those who worked hard. In just half a year, he got promoted and became the head of the company's procurement department. The position of procurement manager was not only powerful but also lucrative, and being the general manager's confidant made it the envy of many. After his promotion, Lee Si-jian stopped taking side jobs and dedicated himself wholeheartedly to the company, hoping for a raise. My in-laws tried to cause trouble several times but to no avail. Their usual tactic of using public opinion against us had been neutralized long ago. All they could do now was call and curse at me. But I simply blocked their numbers and social media accounts, cutting off all contact. When they called Lee Si-jian, he'd answer out of kindness, but as soon as they started badmouthing me or trying to drive a wedge between us, he'd hang up and ignore them for long periods. Eventually, they stopped their nonsense. I thought that after we returned the house, they'd be unable to pay the mortgage and it would be foreclosed. But to my surprise, my in-laws renovated it, bought new appliances and moved in. It was Lee Si-jian's aunt who finally couldn't stand it anymore and revealed the truth. She worked in a bank, and my mother-in-law often consulted her about investments. Every year, my mother-in-law would set aside 200,000 yuan and ask her to find the most promising investment projects. The down payment they provided for our house was indeed borrowed, but they'd done it on purpose so that we'd be stuck with the debt while they earned interest on their savings. Why did the aunt decide to tell us this? Ever since our falling out, we'd barely had any contact. When my in-laws couldn't cause trouble with me directly, they turned to Lee Si-jian. When yelling and scolding didn't work, they changed tactics and started playing the victim. They'd call him, crying and reminiscing about all the sacrifices they'd made for him when he was a child. Once they'd softened his heart, they'd start complaining about how hard they were struggling, how they couldn't afford the 3,000 yuan monthly mortgage and were on the verge of starvation. They'd apologize for their past behavior, and even pretend they wanted to give the house back. Their manipulative words left Lee Si-jian confused, and he came to me asking if he could send them 2,000 yuan from his side income every month. "They've done wrong, but I'm their son. I'm obligated to help them," he said. I didn't agree with his view, but since it was his hard-earned money and it didn't cross my Dishan, I decided to let it go. That is, until his aunt found out and warned us. Lee Si-jian was so angry that he called his parents to confront them. Instead of feeling guilty, they lashed out. "Do you know how much we spent raising you? Now you're Xinteng when you have to give us a little money each month. You married a wife and forgot your parents. You ungrateful wretch." After that, Lee Si-jian cut off all contact with them. With his promotion and salary increase, he finally saved enough for a down payment and bought a house, putting only my name on the deed. On the day we celebrated, we drank a lot. Drunk, he pulled me into his arms and slurred, "I'm so sorry, baby. I know I wasn't strong enough before. I couldn't give you a good life. But don't worry. I'll endure whatever my parents dish out to me. I'm their son, and I owe them for raising me. But no one, and I mean no one, is going to hurt you. I'll make up for everything you deserve, I promise." During that time, he went out of his way to make it up to me, showering me with small romantic gestures like bringing me flowers. Our relationship blossomed like never before. I thought my in-laws wouldn't be able to cause any more trouble, especially since Lee Si-jian had learned his lesson and was fully committed to our life together. But I'd underestimated their ability to cause chaos. Not long after his promotion, Lee Si-jian was reported by a former rival in the company for accepting bribes in a procurement project. An investigation team was dispatched, and he was questioned multiple times. He kept reassuring me, "Don't worry, honey. This is all false. I'll be cleared soon." But as the investigation dragged on, even Lee Si-jian began to worry. The accusers were adamant, naming names and providing details. They claimed that a man named Sun Eru had bribed Lee Si-jian with 20,000 yuan. And they even produced a transfer record. When Lee Si-jian saw the record, his world collapsed. The bank account that received the money belonged to his father. Even though Lee Si-jian had followed all the proper procedures in the bidding process, he couldn't explain why an employee from the company would transfer 20,000 yuan to his father, and the suspicion of bribery hung over him like a dark cloud. The only thing he could argue was that the date of the money transfer was 3 days after the bidding was completed. If it was truly a case of bribery, it should have been before the bidding. It wasn't difficult to understand. There could have been an oral agreement first. He completed the bidding process and used the company of that person. Then they gave the money. The investigation was in a dilemma. The company stated that if he couldn't prove his innocence, he would have to pay the price for this bribery. Furious, he dragged me to his parents' house to confront them. At first, his parents firmly denied everything. It wasn't until he was disheartened and slapped the transfer record in front of them that there was a moment of silence. Then they became enraged and started cursing. That person associated with me because of my good character. Why do you have such a big face to think it was bribery? You're a farmer who toils in the fields. You're of no help to that person. Why would they give you 20,000 yuan? Haven't you thought about it? His father stubbornly retorted. What's wrong with being a farmer? Can't farmers make friends? You look down on farmers. You were born to farmers. Now that you've got a position, you think you're tough and look down on your parents. I'll tell you, that person associated with me. It has nothing to do with you. That person said they liked my forthright character and sincerely wanted to be friends with me. If you don't believe it, we can call right now and ask whether that 20,000 yuan was for you or because of me. His father was beside himself with anger, becoming more and more self-righteous as he spoke. Li Zijian was heartbroken. His lips moved several times but he couldn't say a word. This matter had blown up. Zijian, because you accepted this money, it's hard to explain. Well, it doesn't matter if it was for you or not. Let's just return the money. I soothed him gently, hoping he would take the opportunity to back down. Unexpectedly, his father became even more arrogant. Why should I return it? You're unfilial and won't help us pay off the debt. Now, I made this friend with my own ability. Do I have to return the money I earned? Is there any justice in the world? It's your problem that you can't explain it. You should explain it to the company. You are you and we are we. Why are you bringing this up with us? Well, if you can't explain it, I'll go to your company. I can make it clear. I think they'll give me some face. Li Zijian was so angry that he was shaking, but he couldn't refute his father's fallacies. I also understood that continuing to argue with him was pointless. He had a complete system of logic and language, and if we weren't careful, we would be drawn in and defeated by his unreasonable arguments. I took a deep breath and turned to his mother, who had been silent all this time. Mom, this is a serious matter. Things go wrong, Li Zijian could go to jail. What do you think? I had hoped that his hypocritical mother would show some concern and persuade his father. Unexpectedly, his mother suddenly pointed at me. After a moment of shock, she hesitated and said, "Well, we won't have any more contact with that person." Why should we cut off contact? What does that have to do with them? His father was so angry that he jumped up. I realized that one of these two old people was truly stupid, and the other was truly malicious. I looked at Li Zijian. His eyes were red. He took a deep breath and said hoarsely, "Fine, Mom and Dad. I understand. In your hearts, I'm not as important as that 20,000 yuan. You can keep it." He grabbed my hand and walked out in a hurry. What should we do? How about we give them 20,000 yuan and ask them to return the money? It's useless. The moment they accepted the money, it became a social reality. He smiled self-deprecatingly. Actually, I didn't have to come today. I just refused to give up. I thought there might be a misunderstanding. Well, it's good that I've finally seen the truth. I was so stupid before. Parents-in-law bullying their daughter-in-law and not caring about their son's face. It clearly shows that they don't love or care about their son. The daughter-in-law is just a scapegoat. I was weak and stupid, reluctant to give up this family bond. Now, it's worth it to see the truth with 20,000 yuan. He closed his eyes, hiding all his sadness. Honey, if I can get through this, I'll treat you well. If not, we can get a divorce. I'm sorry for you. That night, my mother-in-law sent a text message. Don't be angry with your father. I've already talked to him. He's just sad. We worked hard to raise you and paid the down payment for you. But you turned your back on us and lost your temper. We raised you for so many years. Even if we don't have credit, we have toil. Do you think you're doidachi us? My mother-in-law's admonition was earnest but had a hint of hypocrisy. However, Li Zijian wouldn't be fooled again. He sneered and replied to his mother, "Mom, you have the grace of raising me and the kindness of teaching me. I acknowledge that. But how I should repay you and Dad is not something you can decide. If you think it's unfair, you can sue me in court. We'll follow the judge's decision for the support plan." After that, he blocked his parents. The company's boss really liked Li Zijian and tried his best to protect him. Moreover, the bidding procedures were complete and fair. Although it was said that his parents had received the money and Li Zijian couldn't explain it, it wasn't conclusive evidence of guilt. As a result, the final outcome was neither good nor bad. He didn't go to jail, but he had to resign. In this kind of matter, once suspected, it was very troublesome. He had a black mark on his record, and no one in the same industry would want to hire him. So Li Zijian was downcast for a while. His parents heard about it and tried to contact him, but he hung up on them directly. His parents then asked relatives to convey their message, saying that they didn't expect things to get so serious, and that they really didn't do it on purpose. They pleaded with soft words, hoping that we would go home and explain things face to face. Li Zijian coldly refused the relatives who came to convey the message. There's no need. Then he gradually distanced himself from those relatives. Now I see those people more clearly than before. I see the baseness of human nature behind their eagerness to meddle. Only his aunt didn't say a word for his parents from beginning to end. She even refused to mention it, as if she didn't know how bad things had gotten. During festivals, we often visited his aunt's house. Our relationship became more sincere and less formal. Li Zijian sent out several resumes, but they were like stones sinking into the sea with no response. He gradually had the idea of starting a business and opening a construction company, but he was short of funds. I took out the property certificate and suggested, "We can use this house to get a loan from the bank." But he pressed down the property certificate. "There will be other ways." In fact, he didn't have any way. He just didn't want to touch this asset. He always wanted to leave me a way out. Although I wanted to advance and retreat with him. They say on the internet that feeling sorry for a man can lead to a miserable life. But when I married him, it was an impulsive and emotional decision. The fact is that so far I haven't lost this bet. So I have the courage to take another gamble. Maybe I have an adventurous spirit in my bones, or maybe I still believe that the person I chose is right. Tang Shanghai just wouldn't agree. I don't know what means he used, but he actually managed to raise the funds and gradually built up the company. 5 years later, his company was preparing to go public. He was extremely busy. In these 5 years, his parents didn't try to contact us. Because they heard that we were in a bad situation, they were afraid that we would ask them for money. The old saying goes that the tide of fortune turns. As our difficult times gradually passed, Li Zijian's company grew bigger and bigger, making tens of millions a day. We moved into a luxury house, got a luxury car and even hired a housekeeper. On the other hand, his parents' situation took a turn for the worse. Although they had a lot of money for their old age, they were worried about running out of money. So they imitated others and invested in financial management. The more they earned, the more they invested. When they lost money and were eager to get their capital back, they consulted experienced people. Finally, they met a scammer and lost all their assets. That person even huyoed them to mortgage their house and continue investing to get their principal back. His father was so carried away that he really planned to do it, but his mother stopped him. His mother heard that our company had grown, and her eyes lit up. She pestered his aunt for months, asking her to pass on a message and saying that they wanted to see us. We moved and changed our phone number so they couldn't contact us. The little they knew about our recent situation was just what they heard from gossipy relatives. They didn't know the details, just that we seemed to be doing well. Tang Shanghai didn't want to go at first, but he couldn't refuse his aunt's repeated persuasion. Over the years I've watched coldly. Your parents should really know they were wrong this time. They've received their just deserts. Now they have nothing but that house. You should give them a way out. Maybe they'll behave themselves in the future. If you push them too hard and they lose the house, can you really let them end up on the street and starve to death? His aunt's words were sincere. Li Xijian finally couldn't refuse and agreed to meet them. When his parents saw Li Xijian, they burst into tears and reflected on their past mistakes. Li Xijian sat there indifferently, unmoved. Mom and Dad, if you have something to say, just say it. I have something to do at the company and can't stay long. He grabbed my hand and played with it absent-mindedly. His mother's eyes flashed with hatred, but she quickly hid it. I'm old and your father is old too. All these years we've been thinking about what happened before. We really did wrong. We shouldn't have been so calculating with you. That house, you're our children. If we don't leave it to you, who else? But what they said was so insincere that I was really annoyed. I held back and didn't say anything, and my mind started to wander. I just listened to their nagging and nostalgia selectively, not taking it to heart. But as I listened, I suddenly realized something was wrong. It seemed that his mother wanted us to buy the house back. That old and shabby house, what use would we have for it? It's not in a good school district, and we definitely won't move in. I was suspicious when Li Xijian smiled faintly and interrupted his mother. If I buy the house, where will you live? His mother was stunned and looked embarrassed. She stammered. Your father and I will continue to live here for the rest of our lives. You don't need it anyway. I couldn't help but laugh. You just want the money. You want us to give you the money and still let you live in the house. Why are you being so euphemistic? Are you ashamed? His mother gave me a fierce glare. His father was furious and wanted to charge forward, but his mother held him back. We can move out and rent it out. Li Xijian smiled coldly. I really liked his meticulous and sharp look. I couldn't help but want to hug and kiss him. He squeezed my hand tacitly, and we looked at each other and smiled. We can live with you. You've been married for so many years. You should have children. We'll be your free nannies. Aren't you getting a good deal? My stupid father-in-law immediately showed a worried expression and interrupted eagerly. I thought to myself, they have really high hopes. Living together means we'll have to pay for all the expenses. They can save on living costs and even earn some money from being housekeepers. It's a three birds with one stone plan. I looked at Li Xijian with admiration. It turns out that your business talent of being a shrewd businessman is hereditary. He wasn't annoyed but smiled. Thank you for the compliment, my wife. But he lost his patience with his parents. He grabbed my hand and stood up. Mom and Dad, I came today because my aunt said I should give you an explanation. Think so too. Some things are better said face to face. After all, you're old and forgetful. You probably don't remember the agreement we reached about your old age 5 years ago. Since you've forgotten, I'll remind you. You raised me when I was young, and I should support you in your old age. It's only reasonable. But for the way of supporting you, you should sue me in court, and we'll follow the judgment. After that, he ignored the angry curses of his parents behind us. He covered my ears and led me out. On the way back, the in-car music flowed gently. I was worried about him and looked at him frequently. He laughed softly. Don't worry. I'm fine. Aren't you sad about breaking up with your parents? He turned to look at me with a gentle expression. It's all in the past. They're not worth my emotions. The debt of human feelings is gone. All that's left is to pay off the debt step by step. I think he was shining at that moment, so good-looking that I couldn't take my eyes off him. The sunlight shone through the car window, and the warm color brought out the similar smiles on our lips. We looked at each other, and happiness filled our eyes and hands.